Welcoming Brian Taylor, managing partner at Ivy Coach for over 15 years, helping students get into the colleges of their choice. First, Brian, I got to ask you, it sounds like fewer students are not necessarily applying to college, or do we have this statistic right? Do we have this data right?
Not really. So there are about 900 universities in America, and of those 900 schools, about 50 are highly selective. At those schools, applications are skyrocketing. They skyrocketed last year. About 66% of more students applied to MIT, just as an example, last year. And you'd think those numbers would level off, but applications were up again at MIT. And that's emblematic at a lot of highly selective schools. So while enrollment may be down at the vast majority of colleges across America, the vast majority aren't particularly selective. The vast majority aren't, a degree from these schools aren't a differentiator on the job market. Whereas a degree from one of the highly selective schools, like the Ivy League schools and other schools with admission rates of below 10% and wait lists that are hundreds long, that's a differentiator.
Yeah. And Paul, you mentioned that at the end of his reporting, that applications are up. Perhaps it's because people think, you know what, we've just come off this very weird historic time in our country and in the world, and maybe I should just go for my dream. So I have to ask you, before we get to the money part of this, is it that more students are actually excited to pursue something, almost like, you only live once, so let me apply to all of my dream schools?
Well, students applying to highly selective schools. They are applying to lots of schools, although many also apply just to one school because they apply early decision or early action and they get in and then they're done with the process. And that's the best, when you apply to only one school and you're done. But then in the regular round, yes, there are students who apply to 19 schools. You're allowed to apply to 20 schools on the common application. And the reason that so many of them, though, strike out is because they cut and paste the same essays for all of these schools, when each of these schools wants to know that you love them above all other schools. So you need to uniquely tailor your application to each of the individual schools.
Yeah, and that's good advice for you parents watching right now, or for you grandparents who can say, hey, honey, make sure to personalize every one of those applications. So in terms of the economy and its role in affecting whether a prospective student, goes to university or enters the workforce, are we seeing a shift now in people's priorities?
Not at the highly selective schools. At the lower schools, yes. I would argue, 100 years ago, a college degree was a differentiator. That's not the case now. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal this past week that people are very happy with college degrees working at REI and Starbucks. That doesn't mean that, but among the highly selective schools, that's just not the case. It's really a tale of two different kinds of colleges.
And one more thing for you. I was thinking about this pandemic era and the fact that a lot of students are applying to Zoom or, online courses. There are a lot of students who might have some thoughts about the risk to their health and not wanting to go in person. But then there are a lot of students who want to be back to normal again. So are you seeing the effects of the past couple of years on whether students enroll in person or online?
Oh, not anymore. I mean, how many years can you sit at home and just watch Netflix? People are back at college and they're very happy to be there.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. All right, and one more thing. Colleges, they are encouraging enrollment how? What do you think the best thing is to try to draw those students in?
For those schools, I don't know what those schools can do. I don't think they're that enticing. When a degree from these schools isn't really worth the paper it's written on. But for those other schools, they're not trying to draw these students in. They're trying to draw students to apply, because the more students who apply, the lower their admission rate will be and the higher they'll be ranked in the all-important U.S. News and World Report ranking. But for those colleges that struggle to enroll applicants, maybe their day has passed.
Brian Taylor from Ivy Coach, thank you so much for being with us.